Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and today I want to look at slash chords, a chord whose base is not the root. There's two important types of slash chords, and we can talk about both of them today. Well, if you're not using slash chords already, you probably will very soon. It's not an unusual idea, right? You're playing a chord and you discover, or the music or your buddy asks you to play the chord with a different bass note. Take a look at this notation because this is the kind of thing you see all the time. Both of these examples are examples of the first type of slash chord. So in this first example, the F chord is played in root position, but the C chord is played in what we call first inversion. And instead of saying first inversion or writing it out in notation, what we've got is called slash chord notation. The C is the chord, the bass is under the slash, it's the E. So watch what happens. There's my F chord with an F in the bass. There's my C chord with E in the bass. Now it's time for D minor, 7, with D in the bass. And now it's time for A7 with C sharp in the bass. You probably noticed that the bass created a beautiful falling line. This is probably the most common example, or the most sort of common iteration of using slash chords, where the composer or perhaps the arranger would really like to hear something happen in a very specific way. That's actually an example of what we call a line cliche, where a falling chromatic line, sometimes called the lament bass, is an integral part of the arrangement and the piece. So the way to notate that, which of course is Stairway to Heaven, would be A minor slash G sharp, C slash G, D slash F sharp. And if you're a guitar player, you've seen this notation, the final one, F over F. You've seen this notation many, many times. Every triad has 3 possible notes, and a good arrangement is almost always going to take into account what should the bass note be. Let's play a simple chord progression. C, F, D minor 7, G7. And as I played that, I put the roots in the bass. But a perhaps more musical iteration of it might be something like this. C over E, F, D minor 7 over A, G7 over B. The ascending bass line created motion and push towards the tonal center. The way to notate that is with slash chords. So that was all first example where the bass note was really a member of the chord. And, it gives you great arrangement ideas, right? Suddenly the bass player is playing a melody, very McCartney, very beautiful and propulsive and sort of symphonic, right? If you want those beautiful symphonic textures, play bass notes that aren't necessarily roots. But one of the great uses, and probably, just sort of most chocolatey use of slash chords, is the use of, you might think of them as alternate bass notes, or a way of notating a complicated chord that's a little bit easier to read. Here's my first example. This is a thick G chord. There's no third in it. We'd have to call it G sus. I guess we call it G sus 9. It's got an 11th, or a sus, the C, instead of the B. It's got a 9th, the A, and it's got a minor 7th. And you know what? It's kind of complicated to write all that stuff out. You could, of course, just notate what you want the player to play, but you know what? Chord symbols are kind of more functional. This is a great place to say F/G. That's a thick sound, and honestly, a great push chord to C, right? The major triad with what looks like an alternate bass note creates a sort of a totality of sound, which is, in a way, a different chord, but is a beautiful, beautiful effect. That's probably my favorite example of this sort of alternate bass note slash. But there's a bunch of other really cool ones. Let's just give ourselves a pedal tone. C, E minor over C, E flat major over C, great sounding, right? D minor over C, D flat major over C, still beautiful, and home to C. And that's kind of a old school Traffic, I'm a man and I can't help but love you. So progression, it's a powerful sound. In this case, the pedal tone would be in the slash. You're going to find plenty of other examples of slash chords, and sometimes it's the only way to evoke a certain sound that doesn't go into the exact specifics of the notes that you want. As you get more and more involved in your composing and arranging, you might discover that you just need to notate things, and that's okay. But in the meantime, slash chords, the use of slash chord notation, and also just the idea of slash chords can become a powerful creative tool, inspirational tool, and an avenue to get new and kind of thrilling sounds. Guitar players, try taking the bass string and just move it down a bit. Change your fingering in the C chord so that you have an alternate way to play the C. Maybe the C happens over a B or over a B flat. The D minor that walks down D minor over C, over B, over A is a beautiful sounding sort of progression and chord, and it's all D minor, but it's all kind of like a little more rich, a little more expressive, and a little more evocative. Slash chords are really useful as an idea as well as a notational device. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe, ding the bell. You'll be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.